Hi everyone, I'm Shelley and you're watching There's No Place Like Home. I'm back with another Question the Narrative video. This one a bit different than the ones that I've been doing recently, but it's an important topic, and that is this: the real Mandela effect. Today's video is not going to be about the supernatural Mandela effect that I have talked about in other videos. Today's video is going to be some interesting information that I'm going to share with you about the Mandelas that you likely do not know. The reason I even decided to do this video was because of the backlash that has arisen because the United States has allowed in white South African refugees. And, the very same people who are constantly advocating for refugees coming into the United States are kicking and screaming at these refugees. And they're saying that it's because they are not real refugees and that they're not really running from anything dangerous. I'm not going to get into the story that is happening in South Africa too much today, but what I can tell you is that if you have not watched the documentary Farmlands by Lauren Southern, I highly recommend it. I just also recommend that you watch it when there are no children in the room, because this will tell you exactly what is happening in South Africa. And despite the atrocities that are happening in the most basic sense, white South African farmers are being genocided in South Africa, and you will not hear about it on the news media, and you will not really hear about it at all from, I would say, even people on the right don't talk too much about it, but it is something that is happening. Yet the South African president, he actually denies that anything is going on there. I do want to share an interesting quote that he just recently uttered, and it was in regards to this situation where he was basically saying that he called to President Trump and he told President Trump that the people who are coming to our country are not really proper refugee status. And these are people coming from his own country to ours. And here's one thing that he said, and this is Cyril Ramaphosa. We were well taught by Nelson Mandela and other iconic leaders on how to continue to build a united nation. So clearly, he looks up to Nelson Mandela, as do many, many other people. He is an iconic image. He is a hero. He himself has received over 200 awards, not this man here. I'm talking about Nelson Mandela, including the Nobel Peace Prize. So just keep that in mind as we get into what I'm going to be sharing with you about the Mandelas. But while Cyril Ramaphosa, the president of South Africa, is saying that nothing is going on in South Africa, we do have people like the communist leader Julius Malema, who are he's very, very popular in South Africa and prancing around the stage with dancers. They're singing about offing people who have the wrong skin color, and a direct quote from him is, "We are cutting the throat of whiteness." So while the president says that nothing is going on, we have the communist leader of the same country who is really inciting violence against the very group of people that are coming here and are being called not refugees by their very own president. So let's look to this man, though, who looks up to Nelson Mandela, and let's take a look actually at Nelson Mandela himself, and particularly his wife, Winnie. I did mention that Nelson Mandela has won a number of awards. This lists all of them. There are over 200 of them. One of those awards he won in the 1990s, and it was the Nobel Peace Prize, of all things. And that's usually what people think of when it comes to Nelson Mandela. They think of peace and his fight against apartheid. But that's why I thought it was so important, in light of the denial by so many people that these refugees aren't really running from anything. I just want to tell you some of the history of South Africa. And it's not even something that is a black white issue when it comes to the things that I'm talking about today. But it is something that is going to show you the violence that this country has always endured, and it sure seems like they've covered it up. So what I do want to also show that many of these of these awards are to Nelson Mandela, but some of them are also awarded jointly to him and his wife. So one is the Third World Prize, awarded annually by the London-based Third World Foundation for Social and Economic Studies, and it was awarded jointly to Nelson and Winnie Mandela. And if you go through here, there's the Freedom of the Borough of Aylwin, Wales, given to Winnie and Nelson Mandela. Honorary membership awarded to Winnie and Nelson Mandela by the National Union of Seamen, United Kingdom. And it just goes on and on and on that they're getting all of these awards because, again, we have been taught nothing but really fantastic things about the two of them. What many people do not know, and what this website seems to not want people to know because of the paywall, is that the party that was led by Mandela is now owning up to atrocities that it committed. I even signed up for a free account on here thinking that it would give me access to the article, but of course not. So what I did was, on my phone, I went on it and I noticed that it took a few seconds for the paywall to come up. So I took a quick screenshot so that I could at least read to you the beginning of this article. South Africa's governing party admitted today that it used torture, executions, and landmines during its fight against apartheid, opening a new chapter in this country's efforts to come to terms with its past. Senior officials of the African National Congress also said they could have done far more to stop the gruesome practice in the black townships of necklacing people suspected of cooperating with the South African security forces. Such people were pinned inside a car tire, doused in gasoline, set on fire, and left to die. Necklacing, in fact, has its own Wikipedia page. I'm not going to share the entire thing because it is pretty gruesome. I will leave links in the description to all of these articles in case you want to read them in their entirety. But this is really to just bring awareness to you of, I think that most of us who come to this channel know that much of our history has been, twisted and covered up. And this is one of those things. This is a real life Mandela effect. It isn't something that happens supernaturally. This is a truth that is still there if you search for it, but it's not something that is readily given to the public or taught in school. So necklacing is a method of extrajudicial summary execution and torture carried out by forcing a rubber tire drenched with gasoline around a victim's chest and arms and setting it on fire. The term necklace originated in the 1980s in black townships of apartheid South Africa, where suspected apartheid collaborators were publicly executed in this fashion. Necklacing was used by the Black community to punish its members who were perceived as collaborators with the apartheid government. Necklacing was primarily used on Black police informants. The practice was often carried out in the name of the struggle, although the executive body of the African National Congress, the most broadly supported South African opposition movement, condemned it. In 1986, Winnie Mandela, then wife of the imprisoned Nelson Mandela, and who herself had endured torture and 4 imprisonments to a total of 2 years, stated, "With our boxes of matches and our necklaces, we shall liberate this country," which was widely seen as an explicit endorsement of necklacing. This caused the ANC to initially distance itself from her, although she later took on a number of official positions within the party. The first victim of necklacing, according to the South African Truth and Reconciliation Commission, was a young Black woman, Maki Skosana of Duduza, on the 20th of July, 1985. I am not going to read the description of what happened to her because it is so gruesome. I'm not even going to try to show it there. Again, you can I'll leave the link in the description if you would like to read it for yourself. But I would like to share with you, I think, a very disturbing comment that a photojournalist made who was there taking pictures of, he was the first to publish, or I'm sorry, to photograph a public execution by necklacing. And this is what the photographer said: "I was appalled at what they were doing. I was appalled at what I was doing. But then people started talking about those pictures. Then I felt that maybe my actions hadn't been at all bad. Being a witness to something this horrible wasn't necessarily such a bad thing to do." And I understand that the pictures drew awareness to what was happening, but at the same time, I I'm a different person probably than this photojournalist was. I would have never been able to stand idly by and watch these things happen. And not only that, while taking pictures of it. Um, Author Linda Schuster writes, necklacing represented the worth of the excesses committed in the name of the uprising. This was a particularly gruesome form of mob justice, reserved for those thought to be government collaborators, informers, and black policemen. The executioners would force a car tire over the head and arms of the suspect, drench it in petrol, and set it alight. Immobilize the victim, burn to death. So here is an article about Winnie Mandela that was written in 2018, and it is a pretty glowing biography of her called Winnie Mandela, the Young Mother Who Refused to Be Broken. And one of the very interesting things that I discovered about this was that she openly admitted basically to supporting this atrocious torture, which was necklacing. Let's see. I think I might be thinking of the next article that I'm sharing with you, but I do want to share this with you too, because again, this is just basically a glowing article about Winnie Mandela, who, as we found out from the Wikipedia article, and I will share with you another article, that she was in support of necklacing people. Having read and listened to the many comments since her passing on Monday, it became clear to me that some people either do not know history or they have selective amnesia. One example is the reaction of former newspaper columnist David Bullard, who wrote on Twitter, "So, after an educational night on Twitter, we're all agreed then. Winnie was a saint who fought bravely against apartheid and only set fire to people or had kids murdered when it was absolutely necessary." Such people seem to have forgotten the trauma Mrs. Madikizela Mandela experienced at the hands of those who enforced some of the most racist and sexist laws the world has ever seen. So basically, the author of this is giving her a pass on her support of necklacing people because of her own trauma, which I understand completely, that people can have PTSD and they can certainly suffer emotional trauma and very likely mental illness from these things and say outrageous things like what Winnie Mandela did about necklacing. But at the same time, these people should not be given awards, particularly awards that are about advancing peace in the world. And here is another article on allthat'sinteresting.com. And it says necklacing was reserved not for the white men who supported the apartheid system, but those deemed as traitors to the black community. And again, this recalls the account of the very first woman who it happened to. And unfortunately, there are some pictures in here that I don't want to share on my channel here, but there is a portion of this article that I do feel that you need to see. A crime celebrated by Winnie Mandela. Though the ANC spoke out against it on paper, Nelson Mandela's wife, Winnie Mandela, publicly and openly cheered the mobs on. As far as she was concerned, necklacing wasn't just a justifiable evil. It was the weapon that would win South Africa's freedom. "We have no guns. We have only stone, boxes of matches, and petrol," she once told a crowd of cheering followers. "Together, hand in hand, with our boxes of matches and our necklaces, we shall liberate this country." That is what the wife of Nelson Mandela, winner of the Nobel Peace Prize, had to say. Certainly doesn't seem very peaceful to me, and I don't think that anyone who has trusted in the legacy that we've been taught about them would be too happy to hear that that was the true Winnie Mandela. And unfortunately, Nelson Mandela would have been complicit in this, and we know that his own party was also guilty of really awful things. So when you do have people who are trying to tell you that these people who are coming over from South Africa aren't real refugees, I assure you, They are real refugees. They are coming into our countries by the proper avenues. And I say, let's welcome them with open arms. That's all that I have for you today. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed and would like to hear more of what I have to say, I would love if you would do that. If you have any questions or comments, you can leave one down below. And if you like my work and would like to become a channel member, I will leave a link in the description box for that as well. Or you can just click on it right on my channel page. And I hope you have a great day.